They told you recycling would save the planet. They told you it was your responsibility. They lied. For decades, corporations have hidden the truth behind shiny logos and green slogans. This isn't just about plastic. It's about control. It's about who really profits, while the Earth pays the price. This is not a feel-good video. This is the truth they didn't want you to know. Welcome to the real story behind the big plastic lie. Are you ready?
We have all been deceived. For years they lied to us, and they're still lying today. You hear it on TV, you see it on billboards, you hear it on the radio. The lie that plastics are recyclable. This lie is told by the industries that pose the greatest threat to the health of our planet, just so they can keep selling the very products that are destroying it. And while doing this, they try to make you feel responsible for the damage they cause. In this video, I will try to shed light on one of the biggest environmental lies in history, explain what's really happening and what we can actually do about it. If you're ready, let's begin. Don't forget to subscribe. The work behind this video, like all of our content, is supported by viewers like you, people who choose to financially support our mission. If you find the information useful and would like to help us do even better, consider supporting us through Patreon, Ko-fi, or directly on YouTube. Plastics are one of the most fascinating and useful inventions of human engineering. Don't get me wrong, plastics are cheap, lightweight, and durable. That's why plastics are used everywhere, from giant structures like bridges and buildings to cars, sports equipment, computers, and phones. In almost every field of engineering, plastics hold a privileged position. Their method of production is fascinating. Just like proteins in our cells are built by linking small building blocks, called amino acids, into long chains, or how DNA forms by linking nucleotides together, plastics are created by chaining together small molecules called monomers. That's why sometimes you hear plastics being called polymers. In fact, plastic is simply the name we give to human-made polymers. DNA, for example, is a natural polymer, while PVC pipes are synthetic polymers. The process of synthesizing plastics and how the arrangement of molecules affects their properties is a deep and complex field of science, one that could easily fill an entire chemistry course. But we won't get lost in those details here. Everything I've said about plastics so far sounds great, right? But when we weigh the damage plastics cause on the other side of the scale, the balance quickly collapses.
Getting rid of plastics is incredibly difficult. The molecular chains that make up plastics are so tightly bonded that very few natural mechanisms can break them down. Some specialized bacteria, fungi, and worms have evolved to digest plastics, but they are rare and the process is extremely slow. As a result, a single plastic water bottle thrown into nature today could remain intact for 450 years. Think about it. If an apple fell from a tree 1,000 years ago and you had squeezed its juice into a plastic bottle, that bottle would still exist today, barely decayed. Imagine buying a copy of Avicenna's Canon of Medicine in 1021 and carrying it home in a plastic bag. If you had done that, the bag would only now be starting to decompose. Plastic straws can take over 200 years to break down. This is why we often see heartbreaking images of straws lodged in turtles' noses. The toothbrush you use today could still exist in the year 2521. We produce and consume so much plastic that our planet is practically covered with it. For example, in the Pacific Ocean, there's a massive floating island of trash made mostly of plastic, spanning 1.6 million square kilometers, about 3 times the size of Turkey. These plastics cover the ocean's surface, degrading the water quality and harming marine life. Plastic waste has even been found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point of the world's oceans, at depths of 12,000 meters. Meanwhile, wealthier nations like Japan, Germany, the United States, France, and Italy ship their plastic waste to poorer countries such as Turkey, Vietnam, Malaysia, and India. They export their problems elsewhere, leaving local communities and the environment to deal with the consequences. When plastics do start breaking down, they don't simply disappear. Instead, they fragment into smaller and smaller pieces. Eventually, they turn into what we call microplastics. tiny particles that easily mix with air, water, and soil. These microplastics are now everywhere. They are even inside us. A study conducted this year found microplastics not only in the environment, but also in human placentas, meaning that unborn babies are already being exposed before they even take their first breath. In Turkey, research has found microplastics in over 50% of local fish species, like mullet and red mullet, 20% of shrimp, and 90% of mussels. Enjoy your seafood. It doesn't end there. Beyond the physical presence of plastics, many of them contain harmful chemicals. Under certain conditions, like scratches, heat, or long-term exposure, plastics can leach dangerous substances into food, drinks, and the surrounding environment. Some of these chemicals, such as phthalates and bisphenol A, BPA, have been linked to serious health issues, including cancer and hormonal disruption. BPA, for example, can mimic estrogen in the body, disrupting natural hormonal balance. It used to be common in baby bottles until its risks became too widely known and it was phased out. Why then do we keep using so much plastic? Are we insane? The answer is because we were lied to, and this is where the big lie begins. Plastics are not only human-made wonders, they are also a byproduct of the oil industry. Around 4% of all oil extracted from the earth is used directly to produce plastics. The rest is primarily used for fuel. This connection between plastics and oil is crucial, and it explains why plastics became so cheap and widespread. Plastics were first invented in 1869. Because they were easy to produce and easy to shape, plastics quickly became a sensation. Soon, they were everywhere, from kitchen utensils and food packaging to textiles, automotive industries, and construction materials. During World War II, the value of plastics skyrocketed. The US government even forced all plastic companies to collaborate under the umbrella of patriotism, accelerating plastic production to meet wartime demands. After the war ended, oil companies and plastic manufacturers found themselves with massive production capabilities and no war to sell to. So, they spent millions to market plastics as essential to modern life. They created a narrative that plastics were not only convenient, but also patriotic, innovative, and futuristic. This strategy worked. Plastics infiltrated every aspect of daily living. And yet, even back then, these companies knew plastics posed serious environmental threats, but they didn't care. Their priority was not the planet. Their priority was maximizing profit for shareholders. In the 1960s and 70s, environmental activists started raising alarms about plastic pollution. Mass protests erupted, and people began to demand change. For example, in 1970, during the first ever Earth Day, over 20 million Americans, roughly 1 in every 10 people, participated in demonstrations against environmental destruction. The growing environmental movement scared the plastic industry. They realized that public pressure could threaten their profits. But instead of changing their practices, they came up with the big lie. They launched a massive PR campaign claiming that plastics are recyclable, and the world believed it. The plastics industry didn't need to fix the pollution problem. They just needed to convince the public that the problem could be fixed. In 1988, under mounting pressure, they pushed for new laws in the United States. One law mandated that every piece of plastic must bear a recycling symbol, the now famous triangle of arrows, with a number inside. It seemed like a victory. It felt like progress. But it was a deception. That number inside the recycling symbol isn't about how easily the plastic can be recycled. It's simply a resin identification code, a way to classify what type of plastic material was used. For example, number 1 means polyethylene terephthalate, PET, commonly used in water bottles. Number 2 means high-density polyethylene, HDPE, used in milk jugs and detergent bottles. Number 3 is polyvinyl chloride, PVC, used in pipes and some food containers. Number 4 is low-density polyethylene, LDPE, used in plastic bags and wraps. Number 5 is polypropylene PP, used in yogurt cups and bottle caps. Number 6 is polystyrene, better known as styrofoam. Number 7 covers all other plastics, including BPA-containing materials. Seeing that little recycling symbol made people believe that all plastics were recyclable. That's exactly what the industry wanted. But in truth, very few plastics are truly recyclable. And even those can only be recycled once or twice before degrading in quality. Unlike glass or metal, which can be endlessly recycled without losing their properties, plastic gets weaker and more brittle every time it is reprocessed. Most plastics are not economically viable to recycle at all. Companies knew this. Internal documents from the 1970s and 80s show that oil and plastic executives fully understood that large-scale recycling would never be profitable. But it didn't matter. All they needed was to create the illusion of recycling, enough to keep consumers buying and disposing without guilt. And it worked brilliantly. Today, less than 9% of all plastic ever produced has been recycled. The rest is either sitting in landfills, polluting oceans, or burned, releasing toxic chemicals into the air. Even the plastics that are supposedly recycled often end up burned or dumped into oceans. Many wealthy nations ship their plastic waste to poorer countries, hoping it disappears from their sight. But pollution doesn't disappear. It simply moves. And the consequences ripple across ecosystems, economies, and generations. Plastics don't just break apart into visible chunks. They degrade into microplastics, tiny particles that infiltrate every corner of the planet. Microplastics are now found in drinking water, table salt, seafood, and even the air we breathe. And this year, for the first time, researchers found microplastics in human placentas, meaning that babies are being exposed to plastic pollution before they are even born. In Turkey, a study found that microplastics are present in 50% of mullet and red mullet fish, 20% of shrimp, and 90% of mussels. No part of the food chain is safe anymore. Worse still, many plastics contain harmful chemicals. Plastics exposed to heat, UV rays, or simply time begin to leak dangerous substances like phthalates and bisphenol A, BPA into food, water, and the environment. These chemicals disrupt hormones, harm reproductive health, and increase the risk of cancer. Plastics are not neutral, passive materials. They are toxic, and they are everywhere. You might ask, if plastics are so harmful, why do we still use them? Because plastics are profitable, and because we have been systematically lied to, not just about plastics being recyclable, but about where the responsibility lies. The industry's greatest trick was to make you believe that you are the problem, that if only you recycled better, consumed less, and made greener choices, the planet would be saved. This was a deliberate strategy, a way to distract the public while corporations kept producing plastics at record levels. Remember this, individual action matters, but it is not enough. The real culprits are the giant corporations and governments that enable and protect them. Real change will come only when we hold them accountable. So what can we actually do? First, we need to stop believing that recycling alone will save us. While recycling is better than doing nothing, it is not a solution. The real answer lies in reducing plastic consumption from the start. Choose reusable products: glass, stainless steel, ceramic. Use cloth bags instead of plastic or even paper bags. Refuse single-use plastics whenever possible. Avoid products made with harmful plastics like PVC number 3 and polystyrene number 6. Support businesses that use sustainable materials. Press governments to regulate plastic production, not just plastic waste. Push for systemic change, better laws, better standards, corporate accountability. Understand that a plastic-free world isn't built on individual guilt. It's built on collective action and systemic transformation. Plastics have given us convenience, but at an unimaginable cost. Easy isn't always better. Convenience can come at the price of ecosystems, health, and future generations. And remember, the companies that created this crisis are still profiting from it. They knew the dangers decades ago. They buried the science. They chose profit over people. And they are still doing it today, wrapped in green slogans and empty promises. Do not let them fool you. A cleaner, healthier future will only be possible if we recognize their deception, if we hold them accountable, If we organize and demand real change, don't let anyone tell you that your actions don't matter, but don't let anyone convince you that your actions alone are enough. Change happens when awareness becomes collective action. Support real science, not corporate PR. Listen to scientists, not advertisers. Vote for leaders who take the environment seriously. Support activists who fight for the planet, not just themselves. We are not powerless. We are billions, and we deserve a future that isn't wrapped in plastic. Plastics may be easy, but easy isn't the path forward. The future will be built by those who dare to care, by those who refuse to accept the lies, the distractions, and the destruction. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Support independent science communicators, and most importantly, stay aware, stay active, and stay hopeful. Until next time.